The Radio Forest Podcast.
Hi, Forrest. Jeff Pilson of Foreigner here.
Jeff, an honor to talk to you, man. Thank you so much for calling.
Well, of course. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you guys are in Idaho next week. After some time off, does it feel great to get back on the road? I mean, I'm sure the answer is yes.
Well, then you're right, because, yeah, of course it feels great to be back. It's incredible.
What'd you do with that extra time off without the touring? Because I know you do a lot of other stuff, producing and working with other bands. So did that open up that time to do those projects, or were you like home bored?
No, I actually did quite well during the pandemic as far as occupying my time. Yeah, I did a covers record with George Lynch called Heavy Hitters that came out great. Started another End Machine record, which is another project I did. We did do some stuff with Foreigner as far as recording and working on stuff. So, yeah, I have a beautiful recording studio attached to my house, and that's where I spent a lot of time. And then the rest of the time I got to be with my family, which was great.
Now, Foreigner hasn't had an album since 2009, so are you guys putting together another release?
Well, I don't think we're going to be doing a full release, but we're working on new material, and we're kind of trying to figure out how to put it out. I don't think we're going to do a whole new record just because it's such a commitment to do that of time, and we're on the road all the time, so it's really hard to make that time to just do a record these days. So what we're doing is we're taking the time when we can to work on new material. We're not in any particular hurry. When it's right, we'll put it out. That's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Last time you guys were here, just a couple of years ago, I saw you as an outside venue here in Idaho called the Idaho Botanical Garden, and Kelly climbed up the scaffolding, but he went all the way to the top. He had to have been 60 feet, 70 feet. I mean, it was not a small stage. Is that something that he does? Was that an off night? Is he just fearless on stage?
No,
what was that?
He's pretty fearless. He does that fairly often, actually. Yeah, he's made Mick Jones kind of worry a few times. He wants to put on a good show, whatever it takes.
Now, you guys are down, Foreigner, down to one original member, and I want to make sure this question comes off right. I'm not trying to put down the band. Mick Jones is the last remaining original member. Now, Skynyrd has announced, like this week, they're going to wrap things up in about a year or two, and they're down to one original member. Is there a timeline when Foreigner stops, when Mick says, that's it, I don't want to do it anymore? Or do you guys just continue? Because I think you're sounding great right now, honestly.
Well, thank you. To answer your question, I would say we haven't really, that's something we're not really talking about at this point. We're kind of firing on all cylinders, so let's just keep rocking. Our body parts seem to be holding together, so yeah, let's keep playing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with Skynyrd. I think they're quite a bit older than you guys on stage, so I think they're like, we just physically can't do it anymore. But I would kind of relate it to Kiss. They're like, look, we can't do it anymore, but maybe some other guys dress like Kiss. I was like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. People would still go. And honestly, Jeff, I think a lot of people that go and see Journey, I think half the crowd doesn't even know that's not Steve Perry because they're not paying attention that much. They're just like, oh my God, I love this song. Do you think as a fan, you could see bands kind of continue in that way? Because we're on like the edge of these bands deciding whether they're going to keep going or be done forever.
Right. Yeah, I do think so. I think the music is so powerful. And I mean, that's the thing with Foreigner, the music is so strong that I think it really can be delivered by somebody that's not the original members. I mean, listen, we deliver a really strong set. We are fans. We love the music. We love doing the best job we possibly can. So even when it's not the original band, it's done with the authority and the belief that you need to deliver it. And I think that's true with a lot of bands. I mean, Arnell, Journey singer, is fabulous. It's a fabulous singer. So I think when you're respecting the music, doing it in the way that people want to hear it, and doing it with that high energy performance, you can't go wrong. And I think the bands like Journey, like us, like Styx, REO, we're doing our best to deliver really quality music, and people seem to be responding, massively.
It'd be a different conversation if the crowd size was going down. You've been in enough bands to know not every show is packed full, and you've also worked your way through going from nobody being there. I mean, it's not like when Foreigner shows up, well, there's no one really coming, people don't want to see us, I guess this is it. There's a lot of people still going to Foreigner shows. I've seen you guys in multiple states multiple times. I mean, you're playing arenas. You're not playing, there's like 20 smaller clubs in Idaho you could be playing, except for the one next week. Does that make sense? So it's not the conversation of nobody's coming.
Right. In fact, it's only been growing. So when that's happening, I'm not going to question it. It's a testament to these great songs and these great recordings and just the timelessness of the music. And we're in full tilt delivery mode, and we're loving doing it. And I don't see us stopping just yet.
Let me ask you about two albums that you were part of that I'm a big fan of. The one being Kill Devil Hill, and the other one being Back from the Dead from Steven Adler. Tell me how you got involved with both of those projects and what the experience was like producing, playing bass, singing, piano. You did a lot of different stuff for both those albums.
With Kill Devil Hill, Vinny Appice and I are very, 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 very close. I mean, we have been for 40 years.
I didn't know that.
Really, he and I are very, very close. And, we've been in bands together and we were in Dio together. And I just adore Vinny. And he's, I think he's the greatest heavy drummer that's ever walked the earth. I mean, it was kind of natural. And I've known Rex. We knew the Pantera guys, many, many, many years ago before they kind of hit it big. So it was just a wonderful project. That was a real labor of love, that record. Rex and Vinny, good friends. And then I became close with Mark and Dewey, the singer and guitar player. That was a great experience. As far as Adler goes, Steven Adler is my best friend. Looks like I only do friends, doesn't it? And the thing is we just had an unbelievable chemistry on that record. Jacob Bunton, who is the singer, Jacob is just so incredibly talented and a great vocalist and a great writer. Lonnie Paul was the guitar player and a writer, and he's just an amazing writer and singer himself. And so we just had this tremendous chemistry, just strong, strong, strong chemistry. We really paid attention to the songs, and we made a fabulous record that still really holds up. And I still hope more people get to hear it over time because, when Steven's on fire, he is the greatest. He is just the most exciting drummer on earth when he's locked in. And boy, is he ever locked in on that record. So, yeah, I'm glad you like those.
So on Back from the Dead with Adler, did you and Johnny both play bass? Did you, add some bass stuff?
I actually played all the bass on the record. Johnny didn't join until after the record was done, and Johnny's great.
Oh, so Johnny's kind of came in as the touring guy after the album was done.
Johnny is in L.A. Guns now. So at the time, yes, he was the touring guy, but he's in L.A. Guns now. So, yeah, in fact, I'm forgetting. Steven has a touring bass player now. It's really good, and I'm spacing out.
Now, back to Kill Devil Hill real quick. I think they're still together, but correct me, Vinny's out and Rex is out. I mean, they're not. You're probably out then too, right, to produce? I think they're in California working on it now or had been recently.
They may be. I see Dewey every once in a while, the singer. I actually haven't heard that they're still going, but I hope they are because it's a great band and great concept, and I think they're really talented guys, so I hope so.
Tell me about the Master of the Moon album from Dio. Why was that his last one? Do you know? Was it health? Was it just didn't come together for another one? Or
well, he toured with that for a while, and then he went back to Sabbath. So, and they were called Heaven and Hell.
Oh,
and that's what he was doing when he passed. So there just wasn't time.
It wasn't that it was necessarily done. It was just that he put that down for a while, did the Heaven and Hell, and then he got sick.
I think it was just time. I'm passing away. So
tell me about being involved with the movie Rockstar. How did you get involved with that? And there's a lot of rock stars in that movie. I mean, that had to have been cool.
It was a lot of fun. I got involved because the producer that had done Dawkins' Tooth and Nail record, a guy by the name of Tom Werman, he was producing the music for the film. And they were working on the music because, oftentimes in a film, you do the music before you start filming. He hired me to be the bass player on the sessions. I came in and we started rehearsing, and Zach and Jason were already in the movie and, going to be there playing and being in the movie. So we started rehearsing, and I kind of fell into a musical director role, and we just started rehearsing together and working things out. Those guys are friends of mine, so it was a great situation. And one day the director just walked up to me. I had a rehearsal. He goes, I really wanted the band in this thing to look as authentic as possible, and I'm watching this rehearsal, and you guys are the real deal. This is really cool. This is what I want. How would you feel about being in the movie? Mm-hmm. And I said, let me think about it. Yes. It kind of got laid on my lap, and it was a beautiful thing and a lot of fun, and what an experience.
I couldn't imagine, because just with Zach and those guys, I mean, every interview I've ever seen, every meet and greet I've ever seen, on stage I've seen, Zach is just a complete ham. loving life and having fun and poking fun and making people laugh. It had to have been nonstop laughter.
Yeah, he's a character. He made it a lot of fun. We did. We had a lot of fun. Probably as many laughs as we spent in important, serious moments.
Now, I know you like to play the Fender P bass, and you got like a 1973. Isn't that kind of expensive in the bass world? Couldn't you get something cheaper for free?
Well, the reason I play those is because I just think they're the right sound for what I'm doing and the right feel and everything else. So, sure, there's cheaper basses, and yeah, I could get one for free, but I don't want to play something for free that I don't like.
The older ones, the 70s, the 60s, those Fenders, they get pricey.
70s aren't as bad as 60s and 50s, and I have 50s and 60s basses, by the way, that I would never bring on the road. But I have a pretty large arsenal of basses, so yeah, I don't mind taking the 70s ones out with me. They're probably worth something, but for me, it's all about the sound and everything else.
So is there any value on the 40s and 50s you might have at home? Because I know some of them can go up to $10,000, the really old.
I have 3 of them that are very, 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 very valuable.
Oh, that's awesome. How do you keep them at your house? You just have them kind of like on a rack, and you still, because you said you got the studio, or they're like, no, you can't accidentally spill coffee on these.
Well, I mean, most of them I use. My instruments I use fairly often. So several are racked, several are on the wall. I mean, I have easy access to most of them. Some of them I don't. Some of them are put away, of course. The ones that I use kind of regularly, I kind of keep out there, and it's kind of cool.
Coming up next year, I think it's going to be my 20th year of sobriety, and I've heard you talk about yours a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
How did you end up quitting? Because that's always an interesting story, talking to someone else that had the same issues as me. How did it stop?
Well, first of all, congratulations on nearly 20. Big achievement, I understand. I had just done a huge drug and alcohol binge, and my girlfriend at the time showed up. This was March 3rd, 1989. I can tell you exactly. She came in and she found me, passed out with all this booze and drugs around, and she said, "You're going to kill when she woke me up, she said, "You're going to kill yourself. You got to do something." So I did, and I called the guy. I found out who had gotten Motley Crue sober, because remember, they got sober right before they did Dr. Feelgood. And I found out who got them sober, and I talked with him. He became my sponsor for a while. He since passed away, but he was a great guy. He helped me get sober, and knock on wood, I've stayed sober since March 3rd, 1989.
What were some of the fears? Because just in my own personal life, I had a list of things I thought I'd never be able to do again as a sober guy, because everything I did, I drank, and it wasn't an issue until I realized it was an issue. But I was like, I don't know how to go to watch a show. I don't know how to go to a concert. I don't know how to date. I don't know how to do any of this sober. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily that it was a crutch. It was just like, hey, from now on, you're not allowed to wear a shirt. You're like, I can't wear a shirt. But I always, as a touring musician, were you like, this is the end of my career?
No. And it was at a point when I did get sober, Doc and we were about to break up, actually. So I think the fear of knowing that I was going to have to be a little more in control of my future helped sort of wake me up a bit. I just looked at it as something that, needed to be done. And I'll tell you something. I think I can say this without blowing any anonymity or anything, but I was actually at a meeting with David Crosby one day. Mm-hmm. And there's several other people. It's not like I went with
I was going to say, I bet everybody's been to a meeting with David Crosby.
And I was talking, and when I got done talking, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, listen, I just want to give you a little advice. I know exactly what you're going," because I had talked about how I don't even know how to, think about writing again and play, And he said, change your schedule. He said, if you are a nighttime person, become a morning person. If you are a morning person, become a nighttime person. He said, just shift your life completely and really approach music fresh with this new kind of schedule. And it worked. I became a morning person, like kind of overnight.
That's awesome.
I was one of those, rock stars that slept till 2 p.m. And I stopped that all of a sudden. And sure enough, the muse came back and I started falling in love with playing again. And it was great. Man,
David Crosby could tell me to do anything, I would do it.
Turned out to be really, really great advice.
Do you ever have a chance to run into him and tell him that story?
I actually did. A few years back, I don't think he had a clue of memory about it. But that's okay. I thanked him is what I did. Is I thanked him. It was we were somewhere in what were we at their show? Or somehow it seems like they were at our show, which I don't know why, because we met Stephen Stills too. But anyway,
Oh, wow.
but he was gracious. Again, very very muted. I don't think he really. I know he didn't remember.
So Stephen Stills also at your show. Who else then, off the top of your head, has popped in, or have you popped in to see kind of a surreal moment where these larger than life icons? I mean, because everybody knows who Foreigner is, so there's got to be a ton of people backstage. And Mick, I'm sure he knows everybody.
Of course. Well, Robert Plant's been to several shows.
Oh, my God.
Hung out with us. And Mick introduced me to Bill Wyman, which was a big thrill.
No way. That's awesome. How was he?
Oh, he was very cool. Very, very cool. He was just really, really mellow and cool. And then I'll never forget one time we were in the lobby of a hotel, and I came downstairs. This was a good 10 years ago now. And I remember seeing Mick talking to two guys, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, that looks like Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper, who were, the Stax Volt, rhythm section that played on a million songs.
Yeah, the backing group for like every hit record out of that era.
Yeah, and Duck Dunn was one of my bass heroes, like back then. And I see him talking to them. I'm trying to look so that Mick can see me, which he does. He kind of sees me, but he doesn't do anything. And then those guys walked off, and I said, was that who I think he was? And he goes, yeah, it was Steve Cropper and Duck Dunn. I said, and you didn't introduce me. He goes, oh, I didn't do it. Yeah.
So, yeah, last question about sobriety. For me, it was alcohol. I didn't really get to the drugs that much, and that honestly was just because who I grew up around and who I was exposed to. In a different person at a different time, I would have gone down a different path of substances, if that makes sense. And I believe that you had problems with both drugs and alcohol. So for me, just worrying about alcohol now is no issue. I don't miss it. I don't want it. I can be around it. I don't like to. It's just not interesting because I don't have anything to contribute. If everybody's drinking, I can hang out for an hour or two, and then I get kind of bored. Drugs the same, or do you have to monitor them differently, or are they all lumped together?
I mean, for me, I don't have to try to stay away. It kind of happens naturally for me, which is fortunate. I just don't like being around people when they're on drugs because they tend to be pretty annoying. It's not torture being around them for me. And the only way I ever craved drugs was when I was drinking. So if I don't drink, I'm okay.
Well, congratulations. So 1989. Do you find yourself now running into a lot more sober rock stars that you didn't realize have been doing this the entire time?
Yes. Short answer, yes. A lot of them are sober now for a good reason.
Because it feels like to me, I remember as a kid, you didn't hear a lot of rock stars talk about sobriety, and it's been a little bit more like popular or at least more talked about. And I realized that during that time, there were all of these people, even involved with the bands that you've been in that probably were out there fighting that sobriety battle alone and just not talking about it. Or maybe we just didn't hear about it without social media, I guess.
Well, there was a little bit of that too, yeah. But I think people have gotten wiser. I mean, you remember that the ethos in the 80s was very party, cocaine. And so it took a while to even realize that it might be a problem. And I think a lot of people have realized that since. And the world has only got more challenging and competitive since. So I guess that makes sense.
Do you have anything coming out soon? Soundtracks, movies, bands, supergroups you're working with or anything like that?
Well, early next year, we have George Lynch and I did another record with Heavy Hitters, which is us doing covers, which is, it's all for fun, but it is really fun. And we actually wrote a Christmas song, and they're going to put some kind of a single out of the Christmas song this Christmas time. But then early next year, we got the Heavy Hitters record. George and I just started writing another End Machine record. That's our project that we have. That's going to be amazing. So, yeah, I got lots of stuff on the burner.
Will you guys get together in your studio, or with technology, do you do different parts and you're like, yeah, I'll send you the bass line, give me a day or two to work it out at my studio? Because I've noticed things are changing a little bit with technology.
Well, George and I tend to work together. He lives down the street. Although during the pandemic, we did a lot of stuff remotely because we were both being very cautious. So we did manage to work remotely, and it worked out well. And I've done a lot. I do and have done a lot of remote stuff quite well. I prefer to work in person when possible. But you're right, the technology has changed. In order to do these records, you certainly have to do some stuff long distance. So I kind of do both.
You guys are here in Idaho Wednesday at the Ford Idaho Center. We're looking forward to seeing you, Jeff. thank you for the chat today, and best of luck. Love seeing the high energy show of Foreigner, man. I really do appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure, man, and I will see you very soon.